Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. China, one of the topics which has been out of Indian discussions for a little bit. With all that is happening in Afghanistan, one still needs to think about China and whether China will attack India. They've been conducting a huge exercise in Tibet using brand new weapons, systems, and so on and so forth with a very, very large force. Remember, the last time a large exercise of this sort happened, they intruded into the LAC regions in eastern Ladakh. What I'm here with Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar to analyze is, will China actually take opportunity with the chaos in Afghanistan and attack India for its own purpose? General Ravi Shankar, a retired Director General from the Artillery, a strategic thinker, a writer, and a speaker. Thank you, sir, for joining me to look the other way around towards China as well.
Thanks a lot, Aadi. It's very nice to be with you again and discuss this important topic, which actually caught our imagination last year. If you remember, at this time we were only discussing China, and when will China attack us now? With this important geopolitical event in Afghanistan, I think it's time to ponder again. Will China do it again?
So before we get into the after effects of Afghanistan and so on and so forth, I'd like to discuss one simple move that is taking place within China, which is the change of the WTC commander. This has been probably the fourth commander that has been changed in the span of time that we've been tracking. What do you think is happening here, sir?
Look, the change of the WTC commander has really nothing to do with the Sino-Indian situation or the emerging situation in Afghanistan directly, per se. That's something which one has to understand. If you look at the broader picture in China, Xi Jinping is really consolidating his hold over the Central Military Commission. Next year, he is up for re-election or reappointing himself as for another term of 5 years of a life, whichever way he will. And for that, he needs a Central Military Commission and the military completely on his side. Unlike other places, in the CPC, the Central Party, the Communist Party of China, the CMC and the PLA have a very high pecking order. They're in fact even above the Foreign Affairs Ministry and all that. So above next to the Politburo, it is the PLA. So unless the PLA is in hand completely, getting power for a third time, which is unprecedented, is going to be difficult. And so what Xi Jinping is doing a changeover of all the commanders and all the CMC members. He's putting younger people in. The older people are being sidelined. So his people are coming in so that he has control. And younger politicians, look, all guys, senior officers in the PLA are political in nature. But being younger and ambitious, they will not have the, guts to question Xi Jinping. In fact, they'll be dependent on Xi Jinping for their progress. So he's getting the CMC under his thumb. That's one. Number two, in the process, I think he's foreseen very clearly that this area of Afghanistan, Tibet, Xinjiang, the Sino-Indian border is going to be an area of great focus. And also the Central Asian republics. So he's probably putting a guy well in the beginning of this crisis cycle to handle it on a long-term basis. So, more than that, I wouldn't see much about it. This is the third guy who's been changed in a matter of about a year. And the incursions in Eastern Ladakh started.
A larger picture. One of the common threats between for India and China is terrorism. Of course, China perceives it differently, India perceives it differently. That's a separate story altogether. But the threat of terrorism is, valid, especially with an organization or elements like the Taliban actually taking power in Afghanistan. One of the biggest stories of the past couple of days is Panjshir for Kashmir, and that is supposed to be a deal which has been taking place between Pakistan and the Taliban. In case that thing does come in force, Kashmir gets a bit affected. I'm just, throwing out a picture here for us to analyze. Kashmir does get under a little bit of a pressure. Would China actually take advantage of that opportunity to put more pressure on India?
See, it's like this. Let's put it this way. First and foremost, no one perceives terrorism differently, China or India. In fact, I will put it this way: India lives with terrorism for a long time. We know how to handle it. China doesn't, right? It has come with a heavy hand in Xinjiang, but this whole story in Afghanistan and all is a new animal altogether. Their approach is different. They are trying to buy Taliban off. You see, why are they trying to do it? Also, you must understand. Islamic terrorism has a bigger cost for China beyond Xinjiang. Xinjiang is bad, but understand the BRI goes into a lot of African countries where Islam rules. It goes into other places also, right? If anywhere it is perceived to be anti that country or anti that region or anti Islam, whatever China is doing, or if it goes against the local politics, it is open to Islamic terrorism.
Mm.
Now with Taliban, coming to power, virtually Taliban has become the chief motivator of all radical Islamists all over the world. So if Taliban is perceived to be in China's pocket, and Taliban has already said China is our most important ally, right, or partner, whichever you call it. So others might say, oh no, we will not attack China and PRI. They are playing a bigger game, right? Then this business of Panjshir for Kashmir and all is all bunk, all kite flying. Let's not, there is no, what shall I say, equation between Panjshir and Kashmir. Things are not going to be that easy, right?
In either of the places, actually.
Yeah.
Because the news reports which are coming out of Panjshir are completely contrary to, a lot of the ground reality and a lot of, as
See,
I was
we don't know the ground reality. Let's be
exactly,
very
yes,
honest.
yes,
We are getting two sides of the same story. Both the sides are totally opposite to each other. All we know is, yeah, Taliban has made some incursion into Panjshir, right? But the Panjshir people are very clear that their resistance will continue. So you're looking at an insurgency situation there. Period. More than that, what can you say at this point of time?
absolutely, yes, sir. So one of the things that the Chinese are looking for, and they keep talking about, is the extension of the BRI, and the Taliban has also mentioned it, into Afghanistan to look at whatever they want to over there in terms of, there's talks about minerals, rare earth elements, and so on and so forth. The story is endless when you actually get into this sort of a domain. The biggest challenge for the Chinese would be security, and that's a no-brainer. They have security challenges in Pakistan. So, I've somewhere read that 2 divisions of the Pakistani army are just supposed to guard the CPEC. So that's something that one needs to note. For the security part within Afghanistan, what would the Chinese do, sir? Hire the Pakistani army as their proxy to guard it? Or look at boots on the ground, which is going to be one of the first times probably the Chinese boots will touch somebody else's ground. So what do you think is going to
See,
happen?
that they might try to buy, if Taliban is strong, they might emerge as strong and is able to handle the whole affair. Maybe they'll rely on Taliban to give them security. Otherwise, they'll outsource it to Pakistan. Worst coming, they have to get in. But knowing the Chinese, they'll not get in. They'll keep talking big and they'll not get in. But because if they get in, they have to put boots on ground. Okay, for minerals and all that, they have to do. And it's not going to evolve tomorrow, day after. It will take a couple of years before the picture is clearer. So I don't see that as a
Because the Chinese actually mentioned only one simple thing, and that's something that I think most of the countries are asking for from Afghanistan is the not to use their land for attacks on anybody else and this and that. How far Afghan Taliban is actually able to hold up to something like that is going to be a question, and I think everybody.
Afghan Taliban will say anything what you want
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
you want to hear.
yeah.
They'll tell you we'll not do anything, but they'll not do anything. So that is again a no-brainer.
I mean, the Chinese are not stupid. They know who are kind
Yeah,
of coming in the list
yeah,
and
yeah.
what kind of influence that they can have. So one of the things the Pakistanis are going to be faced with is a busy Western front till the time the Afghanistan situation kind of stabilizes, as you mentioned, uh, which doesn't seem like happening in the. If you look at the politic of the entire formation of the government, there's no information how long this government will be in power. It's just they've called it an interim government. What is going to happen after that is not known. Pakistani proxies are, in power in that place, the Haqqani network and so on and so forth. So the challenge for the Pakistanis would be to actually keep a lot of lookout towards the western border to ensure things are stabilizing. On top of which, they've got the TTP trying to hit the Pakistanis. From the last time we spoke, there have been two more attacks that have happened. There's one which has happened today itself. And another report that is coming out is the kind of weapons being used by the TTP to hit the Pakistani army. It seems like they've upgraded in their uh, type. This whole thing puts a lot of pressure on the Pakistanis on that side. The Chinese would have been banking on some sort of a pressure from the Pakistanis to keep India under a lot of stress. That game plan kind of seems to be fizzling out with this whole situation coming up. Do you agree with something like that, sir?
See, one of the preconditions for China to take anything significant against India is that the Kashmir Valley is in some disarray, and for that uh, Pakistan has to focus east. That's not going to happen in a hurry. I mean, let's put it this way. Last time we spoke on any subject, there more troops have gone towards the west, Pakistani. And there are also reports of Pakistani boots on ground. In Afghanistan, once you put a boot on ground, it's very difficult to pull it out. I was only thinking that Pakistan will be busy with their western front. Now they're not only busy with the western front, they've gone into their strategic sinkhole.
Depth.
Depth. Oh, jo bhi hai. So for them to pull out is difficult. The Taliban government has not stabilized. I mean, let's face facts. It's still a caretaker government. There are protests. Iran has come out with a different kind of a equation. Now, Turk, the Uzbeks are expressing some reservations. Tajiks definitely. So Russia will swing towards the Central Asian republics. And Russia and India are also talking how to stabilize Central Asian republics and guard them against Taliban. So Pakistan cannot leave Afghanistan and Taliban alone today. It will descend into utter chaos. So Pakistan has to stay committed there. So if it is stay committed, it cannot commit itself to JNK. If that doesn't happen, China will not be comfortable with trying to do something with India. Whether it's a creation of two fronts or two and a half fronts or one and a half fronts, China will need more than one front to be opened to handle India. So to that extent, the earliest when JNK can restart action, the way we are looking, is next summer. Even then, China will take it easy. Unless the situation is beyond Indian Army's control, China will think twice before entering Eastern Ladakh or anywhere else. For that matter, in the eastern sector. Arunachal and Sikkim and all that. So it will wait. So next summer is also out. If it is banking on something happening in J&K and then starting its offensive, next summer is also out. It is next summer. Then the equations are different. We can discuss that.
That's a little time for us to also kind of do what we need to do in terms of.
Yeah.
So you mentioned India and Russia. Actually, that just popped in a question into my head. Now, there is an unwritten sort of a camaraderie between China and Russia. Uh, with Afghanistan, both of them are on opposite sides, and that obviously is going to become a bit of a another game between these two countries.
See, one has to realize till such time USA was in Afghanistan, everyone was singing one tune. The moment USA is left, everyone is looking to their interests. Russian interests are in continuing to control the Central Asian republics. They don't want China to put its footprint more than it has already done. They don't want these Taliban fellows to get into their area. And they need Indian help to do that. Because India has also got a base in Tajikistan. Got one in Uzbekistan also. We have a DA in Uzbekistan, which we never had earlier. Okay. So between Russia and India, we are already talking how to hold these three Central Asian republics, which have a border with Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan. Iran has already said, in some manner, India and Iran should partner to handle that threat. So that means you are now willy-nilly getting an entry from Iran and Russia and the Central Asian republics. If you're going to get an entry into Afghanistan from the other side, Pakistan will not pull out. Which again comes to the thing that China will not venture. Now, so, and slowly the Russians and the Chinese will start looking at their different directions. So you will see this. I mean, this whole story has not yet played out.
Yeah, because China is close to Iran. Iran is talking to India. China is close to Russia. Russia is talking to India. I'm sure the Chinese their radars are up.
Yeah. And China and Pakistan are on one page, which Iran doesn't like. So there, we'll wait. Let's focus on to our LC. Things are too nebulous at this point of time. From that point of view, also, China itself is not stable. It is right now. If it tries something here, will it be overcommittal? It might overcommit itself and open a front which it doesn't want. See, there's another very important thing which you must understand today, which has come up as far as my understanding is concerned, this entire dynamic, where China will be very careful to do anything along the LC, anything hereafter. Reason. For 20 years, America was in Afghanistan. They kept Taliban out, everything out. Finally, what defeated America? Radical Islam, religion, supported by a third-rate proxy like Pakistan. You have Dalai Lama sitting here. What if this turns into a religious kind of a affair? And if religion is used to heighten tensions in Tibet, and in some manner, if Tibetans and the ETIM guys get together, the militant Tibetans and ETIM gets together, and why is China sucking up to Taliban? It's worried about Islamism. What if tomorrow Buddhism becomes radical?
This happened.
Yeah. What happens then? You don't need multi-dimensional war and this and that in the high altitudes. They'll get screwed otherwise also.
internally.
And remember, again, you have to look west. Forget about this. The Tibetans are not incorporated into the Han society or the mainstream of China. They're still a minority. There is still an exclusion principle for them. They're not given any important assignments or jobs in mainland China. So Tibet, we know how to handle it, has different proportions now. So for them to attack India or the LC through this huge landmass of Tibet, we have to make the connotation different. India has to do it.
Mm.
I think we have the edge hereafter.
Mm. Let's keeping all the stuff that we've discussed in in the past some time in mind. So, what are the dynamics that China would want in its favor? That's something that India should look out for. That the Chinese would want having straight for them to take any offensive action.
See, let's before they take any offensive action, there need to be conditions for to take offensive action. The first condition is that China should be sure of victory. The second condition is China should be stable. It should contribute to a political cause.
Hmm.
So let's take these two and dilate on them. So, surety of victory. With the way India has developed, Indian economy is growing. After all, it's bouncing back. And the way we have prepared, at that time we were not prepared, but we still stood up to China and stopped them in their tracks and forced them to go back, notwithstanding the fact that they're still at Depsang. We forced them to go back, and probably for the first time, we forced the Chinese to retract 8 kilometers. Then we are
Same.
better prepared now. We are better prepared. Is China as well prepared to enforce victory? Question mark. The fact that it is trying to undertake exercises and a lot of high altitude training indicates that it is not up to it. It will take a lot of time and effort to be battle fit for high altitude, and just dummy training in high altitude won't do. That experience of fighting in high altitude comes through, operating there for years on end.
Mm.
So the chances of victory are very less at this point of time. This year, next year, out of question. Maybe 2-3 years hence. That's what we spoke last year also. That for the next 3 years they'll not come. And it's now proving true what we spoke in that episode. In fact, you can replay that episode and show it to our viewers what we said then, or excerpts of it. So the chances of victory are low. Now, let's look at it the other way. If the chances of victory are low, then the chances of losses are high.
Mm.
If there are chances of losses, Tibet question will flare up, what we spoke again. And if that happens, Xi Jinping is gone. There will be a cataclysmic change in China. The stakes have just gone up for China overall. People are not understanding that. One of these days, I'm going to analyze it and write it. So that is the first part. The second part is China's chance of victory will go up only if its economy is booming. Its economy is stagnating. COVID has already caught it.
Mm.
The tech sector is being destroyed. Xi Jinping has got common prosperity. That's going to weaken the economy. Okay. So in all this, where will China go? Will China have the edge to defeat India militarily? And worse still, if in all this something happens and some other instability happens in Xinjiang, or something happens in one of its BRI projects in Mali or someplace, Somalia or somewhere in Africa, wherever then what happens to China? The risk factor of trying to start something with India is very, very high. Then, of course, if Xi Jinping wants a re-election, which is coming up next year, will he risk a war with India? Think. Especially when the Afghanistan scenario is wonky.
The world is looking this side.
World is looking. Right. The next, another point one has to think of is, now USA has withdrawn from this area.
Free.
China has extended there. USA will start concentrating on the Taiwan front. So there is a, if China moves towards India, makes a move, it is now getting into a clear 2.5 front situation of its own. Can it handle that? I mean, these are the questions which come into play. Then there are the political issues which I spoke of. China will do nothing which is not political. Next year is China's Winter Olympics 22 Beijing.
That's, yeah.
If China does anything, and that as it is, there is question marks on, what shall I say, boycott and all that. Then what happens to China? Right? So these issues will all dominate. And of course, the National People's Congress, where Xi Jinping is to get re-elected, is next year. So these political issues also will weigh in. And then what is the political outcome of any war with India? What can it settle? So if you take all these into account, this year to anyway is over because it's September and another month the
Winters.
LC will freeze. It's only next year. From last year to this year, if you see, there's a sea change in the world affairs. Last year we were struck for COVID, we were unprepared, whereas China was on the upswing, its economy had boomed, XYZ. Afghanistan was nowhere in the picture. This year, the scene is totally changed. Right? So, next year, who knows what's happening? Can you think that far? So, I don't think this year is out, next year also is out. The earliest is 2023. But by 2023, if our own economy goes the way it is going and Chinese economy goes the way it is going, even if Xi Jinping comes back, he'll be just new into his term. Do you think he'll take up cudgels against India? For a long time now, I don't visualize anything happening. Some chutput will happen. In fact, the flip, when Afghanistan was happening, they agreed on that Bogra post, no? Gogra, not Bogra, sorry, Gogra. So maybe something will happen. They will look back at. There'll be a relook at Depsang also. Be patient.
That's
right.
That's something good for us at least.
Yeah, not only good. Let me put it in another manner. I think the time for offensive of Chinese offensive into India is over. We have to start looking at any offensive into Tibet. What has Pakistan done in Afghanistan? Can't you do the same in Tibet? If you do that, use the same game plan, who will benefit? Who will lose?
The vulnerabilities
I
are
mean,
opening.
yeah, I will say opportunities are coming up. We should have the capability, risk-taking ability to do something.
Hmm.
It's not only into Tibet, which I've always been saying. The center of gravity of Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, and India is Gilgit-Baltistan. So start the political game. Start the political game in Tibet. Start the political game in these areas. Automatically, the vulnerabilities and opportunities will open up.
That's what one needs. I mean,
Yeah, there's no doubt.
because I think gone are the days where these whole frontal attack and
No,
frontal,
I think that's over. That's over.
those are kind of, it's going to be a internal weakening and passing of messages that,
Yeah,
so
and there's one more thing. If you see, all this big talk of Indo-Pacific and all is over. Go into the sea, all that. What has happened? The Indo-Pacific construct itself has to change now.
yeah, true.
With the way Afghanistan has gone, there's a huge continental element in the Indo-Pacific construct. It's a new thing. So the Quad has to also look afresh at its own ideas, whether it's military or non-military. Right?
And one of the things is coming out is that India is not looking away from Afghanistan for a little bit. They've brought it up
No.
in the UN, they've brought it up with
Yeah. We are there. Not only that, the the Russia-India axis will strengthen.
Hmm.
See, we in India have to understand. 4-5 months back, when the Quad was being formed and the new presidency was coming in, everyone thought we were swinging completely with USA. While we are still with USA, there's no doubt we have to remain committed with the USA. Russia is our old friend. We don't neglect it. We build. There's a lot of value in going with Russia, especially for the Central Asian republics. Iran, forget China coming in along. I think there are huge opportunities which are opening up
Oh, yes.
both sides,
Mm.
towards the Quad and towards the other side.
Iran is something that we've spoken about in our last video, that it's our
Yes,
opportunity to get the West and Iran.
on the same page.
Yeah.
Right? That will put a spoke in everyone's, right? So our outlook has to change.
Indeed. But that is, I think nobody can disagree with something like that, because at the end of it,
Yeah.
it's our national interest that we are looking for and nothing else.
There's no doubt.
It's all, rest is all hokum, if I may put it that way. Because if you look at what Pakistan is doing, also, I mean, no matter how much you hate them, but they're doing it for their own national interest. They've got something in the
Look,
middle of it.
what Pakistan has done with its means is brilliant. I mean, let's accept it.
20 years.
The outcome of this down the line might be different, because Pakistan, I have always been maintaining, is a first half player. It does something without thinking of the consequences. Whether it is in Bangladesh or in Kargil, the first half was brilliant. Their occupation of Toluling, Tiger Hill, and all those heights overlooking the National Highway 1 Alpha were fantastic. It is the second half they lost. Their first half will be brilliant. The first half, as far as Pakistan, is just finished.
Always.
Year after, the second half will start. Let us see what they do.
Yeah, I mean, the game has just begun, so I think probably it's first over that has been bowled.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a long match. So there's been an interesting discussion, because one thing I've realized is the focus towards China is kind of, a little wavering. Only when the WTC commander got changed, then the discussion started up again. Otherwise, the focus of China was in parlance of Afghanistan. Ki Chinese aake bas abhi yahan se saman leke chale jayenge. So that's something that was in the news. But I think as lookers of geopolitics, observers of geopolitics, and students of strategic affairs around India, China is something that we must keep an eye out all the time, because they are going to be in, as we just mentioned, they are going to be in their own national interest trying to get an upper hand, one in the Afghanistan situation, two of course in the India-China relationship, because we all know that it's not gone the way the Chinese would have hoped. So it's probably not very well perceived within the top echelons of power in China as well. Thanks, sir. I think this has been an insightful discussion, because we've looked into certain nuances of the dynamics of how China is going to think and take this relationship forward, and how the world powers, of course, are going to be reacting to the situation in Afghanistan. All and everything is collected into one big bowl of soup. Till next time, sir, for another topic, another day. Jai Hind.
Thanks. Jai Hind, Adi.